Hello all. I hope you have seen the previous video about the aqueducts and siphon aqueducts. Now we are moving to the design procedure of type 3 aqueducts and siphon aqueducts. So whenever there is a cross drainage work, then the first thing is to identify the type of cross drainage work. As you may be knowing, there are 3 cross drainage works possible. There are aqueducts, siphon aqueducts, super passages and canal siphons, and then the level crossings and inlet outlet arrangements. Out of this, which one is to be provided? Okay, that is the first question to be answered. So, how to find out the type of cross drainage work? If the discharge in the drainage is very high than the canal, and the canal bed level is much greater than the drainage bed level, okay, in this case the drainage is above the canal, right? When the canal bed level this is the canal bed level is much above the stream bed level. In this case we are supposed to provide a aqueduct, right? Now once we have fixed that we are going to provide an aqueduct, the next question is it going to be a siphonic aqueduct or it's going to be a single aqueduct? Okay, now to differentiate between aqueduct and siphonic aqueduct, the next question to be asked is the canal bed level greater than the high flood level? Okay, so first you check the bed levels. The second thing, you are going to check the water level of the river or the stream. So if the high flood level of the river is much below, or otherwise the canal bed level is much above the high flood level, in that case you are supposed to provide a aqueduct. Now if the CBL or the canal bed level, this is the canal bed level, if the canal bed level is less than the high flood level, okay, high flood level is here means, then you have to provide a siphonic aqueduct. So the first question is, where is the canal bed level with respect to the drainage bed level? The second question is, where is the canal bed level with respect to the high flood level of the river or the drain? Okay, so based on that we have to fix the type of cross drainage work, an aqueduct or a siphonic aqueduct. Okay, this is the first step. So the next step is to fix the type of the aqueduct or siphonic aqueducts. As you know, there are 3 types: type 1, type 2, type 3. We have to fix the type. As per your syllabus, you just have the type 3 aqueducts to be designed. A type 3 aqueduct is provided whenever the drainage is very large. Okay. Now move to the design procedure or design principles of the aqueduct. So here you can see an aqueduct. Let us try to identify the various components that we may have to design for this aqueduct. Okay, so you have the river, you have the canal, and now what are the different components that we may have to design? Let us start here. Okay, from here there is fluming, right? So now the first thing will be this zone where there is a transition, right? So we have to fix the fluming, we have to fix the dimensions all along this transition zone, right? Then the water is entering the trough, so then we may have to design the trough. Okay, the trough, the rectangular trough, and then you have to design a inspection road. So this is the trough and this is the inspection road. Okay, after you fix this, then again you have a transition zone here. This transition has also been designed. Now this length, isn't it? What will be the length of the aqueduct? It will be the width of the river. So this we have to fix. Then about the piers, there are piers below it, right? So this barrel way or openings, all these openings, how many openings has to be provided, and based on that how many piers will be there, all those things we have to fix. Okay, so we have to fix the transitions, we have to fix the waterway, we have to fix the drainage waterway also based on the piers and the pillars that we are going to provide, and also the transitions and the trough where the water is the canal water is going to be carried. This trough also we have to design. Okay, so the first step in any design is to estimate the maximum flood discharge in a drain. Okay, so based on the runoff from the catchment, the high flood discharge of the stream has to be calculated. So that is the primary information that we must have in our hand before we start the design of the aqueduct. What is the discharge or the high flood discharge that may happen in the river or the drain? Okay, so in many cases the runoff coefficient and the catchment area will be given. Then any of the empirical equations, Q is equal to CA raised to N. Just in the case of Dickens equation, you have Q is equal to CA raised to 3 by 4. These equations you may have to use and find out the Q value. Okay, that is the discharge through the drain. That is the first thing to know. In many of the questions it may be given, the Q value will be already given to you. In some of the questions the value may not be given. In that case, we may have to use any of these discharge calculation equations, or maybe you have to use the hydrographical analysis in case of larger drains. But in smaller drains, you can just use the empirical equations like this and find out the discharge through the drain or the river. Okay. The second step, this is where the design is starting. In step 2, the actual design is going to start. Step 1 may be there, it may not be there. It's based on the question. In some questions, the Q value will be directly given. In some questions, the C and A value, that is the runoff coefficient and the catchment area, will be given. In that case, what we have to do is, we have to find the Q based on the equation and then find the rest of it. Okay. Now, the design of drainage waterway. To design the drainage waterway, we must know the width of the drain, isn't it? So this is the river and this is the canal flowing above the river. So the river is flowing towards us. Suppose the river is flowing in this direction. So we have to find out the width of the river. Okay, to find out the width of the river, what is the formula to be used? In case of large drainages, we can use the Lacey's equation, that is P is equal to 4.75 root of Q, and then you can just take this perimeter P as the width of the drain. For large drainage, the wetted perimeter is taken as the river width itself, but for smaller drainage, you can just give a reduction of 20%, so you can take 0.8 times P as the discharge. Okay, in Lacey's equation has to be used here. P is equal to 4.75 root Q. Find the value of P. If it is a large drain, then length of waterway is equal to P. If the small drain, then length of waterway is equal to 0.8 times P, or 80% of P. Okay, so only once you know this dimension, then you can fix the number of piers required to support the aqueduct. Okay, so first thing is to find the length of the waterway. P is equal to 4.75 root Q is the equations to be used. In some questions, the Q won't be given, then find out the Q, and then using this equation you have to find the Q and then find the P value. From the P value you can just find the length of the waterway. Now, once you find the length of the waterway, this has to be divided into number of spans. Okay, so that the aqueduct can be supported. So this is the clear span is actually fixed based on the structural strength required as well as the economic considerations. In usual practice, you just give a clear span in the range 6 to 10 meters and the pier thickness of 1 to 2 meter. Okay, so this span, this distance will be 6 to 8 meters and this will be 1 to 2 meters thick. Now the next is, once you find out the once you fix or you assume the clear span and the pier thickness, now the next step is to find the number of bays, or bays means these waterways. Here you have 3 waterways, right? So these waterways are called as the bays. The bays, number of bays can be fixed by width of the drain divided by clear span plus pier thickness. Okay, clear span plus pier thickness means the total. Okay, so Now the width of the drain divided by S plus Tp will give the number of bays. The next step is to find the number of piers. Number of piers will be number of bays minus 1. Here you can see there are 3 bays and you have 2 piers. So number of bays minus 1 will give you the number of piers. Okay. The next step is to find the length of the clear waterway. Length of the clear waterway is equal to number of bays into clear span. Clear span means this one. This is the clear span. So that is what we assumed, right? So length of the clear waterway is given as number of bays into clear span. The overall waterway, that is total, that is equal to length of the clear waterway plus number of piers into pier thickness. Okay, so we find out the complete total waterway length, that is length of the clear span plus the all the piers thickness. So number of piers into pier thickness. So once you calculate WA, that is overall waterway, WA, if it is greater than the P that we calculated in step number 1, then you can say the design is safe. Otherwise there is sufficient length provided. The next step is to fix the velocity of flow through the barrel. In case of aqueduct, the barrels are not that important because here we are not going to design this barrel in a elaborate manner. We just have to fix that, fix the velocity of flow through the barrel and as well as the height of the opening, height of the barrel. Okay, so here we are going to fix the velocity of flow, velocity through the barrel as 1.8 meter per second to 3 meter per second. The reason is that if it is much lower, there are chances of silting. If it is much higher, there are chances of abrasion. So we have to fix the value between 1.8 meter per second and 3 meter per second. Okay, so that is the velocity of flow through the openings, or otherwise barrel. The barrel is a word that is generally used in case of siphon action. Here also the word barrel can be used, but it's just the opening in case of aqueduct. Now this is the height of the opening. Height of the opening is taken as the depth of the flow. Depth of flow means the river water flow plus the clearance or the headway, or you can say it's a freeboard. So if this is a drain, this depth is taken as this is the drainage bed level. Okay, so plus the FSL level, depth of flow, plus the above clear span. This is the height of the opening. A clearance of usually 1 meter or half the height of the culvert is provided. Whichever is less, you have to provide it. The next step is to design the canal waterway. So in the step number 2, we have fixed the drainage waterway, that is river waterway. Okay, so this view, this is the view that we are going to fix here. So first step is to fix this view, that is what is this total length, how much must be the height of this openings, number of openings to be provided, number of piers to be provided, number of bays to be provided. This view are going to fix in the first step. Okay, now moving to the second step, we are going to the canal part. Design of canal waterway. So as you know, the canal waterway is of width B. Okay, the usual section of the canal will be trapezoidal section with a base width of bed width of B. Okay, now as the canal approaches the aqueduct part, what happened? You have to provide a fluming. Okay, so the bed width of the canal is reduced by 50%. Otherwise, it is half the actual canal bed width. Okay, so 0.5 B will be the flumed bed width BF, and you have to make sure that the velocity, permissible velocity through the canal waterway is between 0.8 to 3 meter per second, and then there is subcritical flow conditions that exist there, because if the supercritical flow conditions exist at the exit of the canal waterway, there will be chances of hydraulic jump formation. So in that case, you have to make sure that the subcritical flow conditions prevail there. So you have to do this check. Q actual is less than the Q permissible, and then Q actual is by root GD is less than 1, that is subcritical flow condition. What will be the area here? Inside the trough, the area, the shape will be rectangular. Okay, so outside the trough it is trapezoidal, but inside the trough it is rectangular. Okay, the canal is actually a trapezoidal section, but the trough portion is actually rectangular section. സോ കനാൽ ട്രപ്പിസോഡൽ സെക്ഷൻ ആയിരുന്ന കനാൽ ഫ്ലൂമിങ് കഴിഞ്ഞ് ഫ്ലൂംഡ് സെക്ഷൻ ക്രോസ് ചെയ്ത് അക്വിഡക്റ്റിൻ്റെ മുകളിലേക്ക് എത്തുന്ന സമയത്ത് അതിൻ്റെ സെക്ഷൻ റെക്റ്റാങ്കുലർ ആയിരിക്കും. ഓക്കെ, now we will see the flumed section in detail, how the fluming is given. So this is the section. Now first this is the direction. First this is the canal direction. Here the canal is flowing in this direction. So first, when the canal is approaching the aqueduct, first part we are going to give a splay of Z1 is to 1, where Z1 is to 1 may vary from 2 is to 1 to 3 is to 1. The usual practice is to provide a 2 is to 1 splay. So 2 is to 1 splay is given here at the entry, okay, at the contraction. So the canal is coming with this dimension B. Once it reaches the aqueduct section, its dimension its width become BF, or otherwise 50% or half of B. The angle or the splay between this section will be 2 is to 1, okay, otherwise 30 degree, and then there also will be a warping in between this section in these walls, so that the section is transformed from a trapezoidal section. Canal is having a trapezoidal section, here it is a rectangular section, so there will be warping also and there is splay. Okay, now once the aqueduct section is finished, the length we have fixed in the step number 2. Once the water travel to this point, from here the aqueduct ends, and then the water is to go back to the canal section itself. So here there is an expansion section where the splay is provided as 3 is to 1, or otherwise 22.5 degree, which is an expansion section. Okay, and then the length of the flumed portion from the abutment to abutment is WA that we fixed in the earlier steps, and here it is LC. LC is the length of contraction, and it is given by B minus BF by 2 into Z1, or 2. In this case it is 2 because 2 is to 1 is a slope, and this part LE, length of this expansion part, is B minus BF by 2 into Z2, or otherwise B minus BF by 2 into 3 in this case. Okay, so this is the fluming of the canal. So first step we fix the drainage waterway. Second step we are fixing the canal waterway. Canal waterway is having a fluming, so first you just find the fluming width. The flumed width is actually half the canal width. This reduction in the width is occurred by using a splay. In the upstream side you are giving a splay of 2 is to 1, or otherwise in the contraction section there you give a splay of 2 is to 1. In the expansion section, or otherwise downstream side, or otherwise you can say the canal is going back to its original dimension, in that part we are giving a splay of 3 is to 1. Okay, the length of the contraction is given by the equation B minus BF by 2 into 2, and the length at the transaction or the expansion is given by B minus BF by 2 into 3 if the splay is 3 is to 1. Okay, so this is how the fluming may look like. First the water will be coming, and then it is going to have a flume section like this. Then the canal is going to move in a rectangular, water is going to move in a rectangular portion, and then again it is flumed back to its original section. Please note the angles here. It is 30 degree, means 2 is to 1 is the splay given. Here it is 22.5, that is 3 is to 1 is the splay given. Okay, so we are talking about this section here. Here it is B, here it is BF, or otherwise B by 2, and this angle is taken as, this section is, if this is the entry, then this is 30 degree, or otherwise 2 is to 1, this is 2 is to 1. At the exit it is 3 is to 1 or 22.5 degree. Okay, Now we are going to design this transition part in detail. Okay, so for that we have three methods: Hind's method, Mitra's hyperbolic transition method, Chaturvedi's semi-cubical parabolic method. But the method that we are going to use is Mitra's hyperbolic transition method. So how to design this transition? Okay, so the main thing is that the depth of the water in the canal must not change. Whatever, if the fluming is happening or not, in that case, in whatever be the change in dimension that happened to the section, we have to make sure that the depth of the water is not changing. Depth of the water in the canal is not changing. So for that, how the transition must occur? So we have to fix up the dimensions all along this transition curves. Okay, that is the step that we are going to do using the Mitra's equation. All these dimensions, all these points, dimensions, we have to find out. So to find out these designs, what we are going to do is we are going to use the hyperbolic equation given by Mitra's hyperbolic equation, which is given as Bx is equal to Bn Bf Lf divided by Bn Lf minus x into Bn minus Bf. The thing is that what Bn notates is the original or the normal canal section. For us it is B. Okay, now Bf is the term that is used for the flumed section. What is it? It's B by 2 actually here. Or we can write it as Bf itself, flumed width. Then Lf is the length of the transition. That is, at various sections we have to take the transition. So what is the length at contraction as well as length at the expansion? So you have two Lfs. It can be either the contraction Lf LC, or it can be the expansion Lf LE. The next is Bn. Bn is again the normal width Lf, and x, the next unknown term is x. What is this x? X is actually the distance from the distance of the flumed section from the aqueduct cross section. So is x is equal to 2 or x is equal to 1, you have to divide this whole length, or otherwise this transition length, what will be this? Let us consider this as the contraction LC. Okay, we are assuming this as the LC. If this is the contraction section, we have to take some points in between these LC and find out the dimensions at each of these points. Okay, so we will be taking x, it will be 10 meter. We can take it as 2 meter. The next is again 4 meter, 2 plus 2, 4 meter. Or you can take here 6 meter. You can take 8 meter and take one more section and say it's 10 meter. Okay, so the whole section is divided into certain intervals. We are finding out the dimension at those intervals. So that is this x. At what distance is the particular section from the approach? So first find out the various sections and then find the Bx value. What is the Bx value? Bx is the corresponding width at this. So this is the B at 6 meters. So here it is 6 meters distance, and this is the Bx here. This is the 4 meter distance, this is the Bx here. This is the 2 meter distance, this is the Bx here. There is a particular, from that we have to find out the breadth width, canal width at the various points. Okay, so for contraction, Lf is equal to length of contraction, and we have to write down a box like this and then fix up x is equal to 2 meter, 4 meter, 6 meter, like that. You have to divide this complete length, contraction length, into various parts and find out the breadth width at that particular distance in the flumed section. Similarly, in the expansion part also, we have to take the length of expansion, Lf as the length of expansion, and give certain values for x, and then find the corresponding Bx values. Okay, this is a design of transitions. The next step is to find the head loss and bed level at different sections of the canal. So at different section of the canal, there will be canal bed may be raised because the depth of the water cannot be changed. So for the water to flow, there must be some head difference. So the depth of the water may not be changed. To make sure these two conditions are satisfied, we may have to raise the canal bed level according to the head loss. Okay. So based on that, we will be fixing three lines. That will be the TEL line, the FSL line, and the bed level line. Okay. So we will be finding the levels of the canal bed level at various distances, and will be finding out the TEL and the FSL at that distance. So here you can see, this is how the TEL, FSL and the bed level looks like. So we have to find out these dimensions, and we have to make sure that the depth D is kept constant, and then find out the bed width at the various sections. So to find that, we are dividing the complete aqueduct section into 4. First one will be at the entry of the water into the flowing section. Second, the entry into the aqueduct section. Third, exit from the aqueduct section. And fourth one is exit from the transition part. So here the whole part is divided into 4, and we are going to find out the different levels, the canal bed level at all these sections. We will start from the end. The first, we are going to take the section 4, that is at the exit point. At section 4, what is going to be the shape of the section? At the exit, it is getting back to its original cross section of that of the canal, isn't it? So the section there is going to be the trapezoidal section, having one end the side slope, and area is equal to B into N plus ND by into D. So here the canal is regaining its original shape, right? So here this is a trapezoidal section. This section is a trapezoidal section. Okay, and we are going to find out the bed level and the water surface level and the depth of water in that particular section. First, what is the TEL level? The TEL level will be the FSL at the section 4 plus the V4 square by 2G. Okay, that is the FSL plus kinetic energy head. Kinetic energy head is V square by 2G, right? So what is the velocity at 4? Velocity at 4 is V4. What is this V4? V4 is equal to Q by A, where A is equal to A4, that is area at section 4. So what is the area at section 4? What is the shape? The shape is trapezoidal. So what is the area? B and D into D, right? So first find area at the section 4. Area at the first being the section there being trapezoidal, the area is found out. Based on the area, what is the velocity at section 4 is given by Q by A4. Once you know the velocity at section 4, what is the kinetic energy head? Kinetic energy head is equal to V4 square by 2G. So if the FSL level plus kinetic energy head will give you the TEL at the particular section. So here in the section 4, almost all the parameters are known to us because it is the same as that of the canal section itself. So we will be knowing the bed level will be given, the canal bed level will be given, and then the water depth will be given to us. So once you know the canal bed level, then you can find out the FSL of the river. How to find out? Suppose this is a section, I'm just drawing it here. This is section 4. The canal bed level will be given to us. The water depth will be given to us. Then what will be the next line? FSL line. Just add canal bed level plus D will give you the FSL line. From the FSL line, add V square by 2G. You will get the TEL line, right? So TEL is where V is the V square by V4 velocity at the section 4. Okay, so this is at the section 4. Now move back to section 3. What is the section at section 3? Section 3 is the aqueduct section, right? The entry of the aqueduct. What is the section? The section is a rectangular section. So here at 3, it is a rectangular section. What will be the dimension? Dimension will be BF into D. Okay, the depth of water is not supposed to change. So the D value will be same all through the analysis. So BF into D is the area there, that is A3. So if area is A3, what will be the discharge the velocity there? V3 will be Q by A3, right? So Q by A3 is also found out. So if Q by A3 is the velocity there, what will be the kinetic energy head there? Kinetic energy head is equal to V3 square by 2G. Okay, this also we can find. But then one more thing you have to note here. There is an energy loss due to expansion between section 4 and section 3. Okay. Though we are analyzing in this direction, let us consider the water direction. Water is going to flow from section 3 to section 4. In flowing in open channel hydrology, you may have studied the expansion losses, right? So from 3 to 4, the water is going to get expanded. In that case, there will be expansion losses. What is the formula for finding expansion loss? Expansion loss is given by 0.3 V3 minus V4 square by 2G, right? So you have to find out the expansion loss there. Okay, so first step is to find the expansion loss. Expansion loss is given by 0.3 V3 square minus V4 square by 2G. Okay, so find the expansion loss also. Now let us fix the various levels. What is the TEL at 3? TEL at 3 is equal to TEL at 4 plus expansion loss, right? We have found the TEL at 4 in the previous step, plus just add expansion loss, that is equal to V3 square minus V4 square by 2G. Just add it. We will find the TEL at 3. Once you know the TEL at 3, what is the FSL at 3? FSL at 3 is equal to TEL at 3 minus kinetic energy loss, that is V3 square by 2G, right? Now, what is the canal bed level at 3? Canal bed level at 3 is equal to FSL at 3 minus D, or otherwise full supply depth, isn't it? So we fix the 3 levels at section 3 also. Hope you understood. The only point that we have to note is, don't take it as contraction, it is expansion, because the direction of the flow of water is from 3 to 4, so it is an expansion. Just note that point here. Hope you understood this. Now move to section 2. At section 2, between section 3 and section 2, this is section 3, right? Section 3 and section 2, it is a rectangular section, isn't it? The whole trough is a rectangular section. The area and the velocities will be the same at 2 and 3. So, what are the losses that may happen when the water moves from 2 to 3? The only loss that can happen here in between is the frictional loss, right? So, in this section, it is frictional loss. Now, what is the equation to find frictional loss? Frictional loss is equal to V square N square by R raised to 4 by 3. This is the Manning's equation rearranged here. And where R is equal to A by P, or area is equal to what? Rectangular section, area is equal to BF into D. Perimeter is equal to BF plus 2 times the D. This BF is the width plus 2 times the D. So BF plus 2 times D is the perimeter. So BF by 2D will give you the R value. From the R value, taking the N value as 0.016, you can find this equation, V square N square by R into R raised to 4 by 3. Find from that value, find the frictional loss that may happen between 2 and 3 sections. Okay. Now, what is the TEL at 2? TEL at 2 is equal to TEL at 3 plus frictional loss, right? Now, we have found the frictional loss using the equation. What is the FSL at 2? FSL at 2 is equal to TEL at 2 minus kinetic energy loss, that is V2 square by 2G. V2, what is this V2? V2 is same as V3. So you can just substitute the value that we found in the earlier step and find V2 square by 2G. What is the canal bed level at 2? That is equal to FSL at 2 minus D. Okay, so we found the 3 levels at 2 also. Now at the entry point, section 1 as you know, the between 1 and 2 this is 2 what is happening? Contraction is happening. So when the contraction is happening, there will be contraction losses. What is the equation to find contraction loss? 0.2 into V2 square minus V1 square by 2G, right? So what is this V1? V1 will be same as V4. Okay, this section here and this section at 4 they are one and the same because it is the same as the canal section, isn't it? So section 1 is actually a trapezoidal section. So here the velocity at 1 and velocity at 4 will be the same. So already we have found out V4. Substitute the value of V4 equal to V1 and find the contraction loss, that is given by 0.2 V2 square minus V1 square by 2G. Okay. Once you found the contraction loss, what is the next step? The TEL. TEL at 1 is equal to TEL at 2 plus the contraction loss. And also FSL at 1 is equal to TEL at 1 minus the kinetic energy loss V1 square by 2G. And the canal bed level CBL at 1 is equal to FSL at 1 minus small d, that is full supply depth. Okay. So by this we have fixed up all the different RLs or reduced levels of the canal bed and the water surface in the canal. So you'll be getting a sketch like this where you can show the various levels, levels at the section 1, 2, 3 and 4. All these sections you have to mark this is the level at the RL values. You have to fix. You can note that this FSL and CBL will always be will be having a difference of depth D. Now we have designed the canal bed. Now the next is to find the design of the trough or otherwise the water carrying part. This part we are going to design. Okay. So in the trough is actually divided into number of compartments. It's not just a single compartment carrying the whole water. You may have one or more compartments. Usually it is taken as BF by 2 or otherwise the width divided by 2, or it can be made to any number of compartments, each of equal dimension. So if you are having 15 meter wide, you can just take 3 compartments of 5 meter each. It's okay. It's quite okay to provide equal compartments. Or you can take the half and take B by 2. It's up to you. It's up to the designer on how you take it. And these compartments, this is how it is. Suppose this is a 10 meter wide canal. In a BF is equal to 10 meter. In this case, they have divided the whole thing into 5 meter each. So the whole partition is done into 2 meters, into 2 halves. Or it can be of any number of halves, in any number of equal parts. This is what is called as a compartment. This is a compartment, this is another compartment. 2 compartments are provided here. And also the partition walls are usually given as 0.3 meter thick. So these walls are the partition walls here. They are taken as 0.3 meter thick. And also an inspection road has to be provided. Usually 5 meter wide is carried. And it is usually provided in the left turn extreme. Here I can see the left turn extreme compartment is having the roadway. It all depends upon the design. This 5 meter provision means if the 5 meter is available here, then you have to provide 5 meter. If it's not available, then you have to design it accordingly. Okay, these are the whatever values I have shown in red. All these red values are just the usual values that we provide. It's not confining you that you must provide this value. You can design it other ways also. But then these are the usual values that you may have to use for your exam. Now, the entire trough section is to be constructed in a monolithic RCC, and it is designed by the usual method of structural design. The side walls of the canal are to be designed as RCC retaining walls, and a freeboard of 0.5 meter has to be provided. And the height of the trough is given by FSD plus freeboard. So here you can see there's a freeboard, right? So this is taken as 0.5 meter, and there will be a full supply depth, FSD will be there. So the height of the trough will be equal to FSD plus full supply depth plus 0.5 meter. The thickness of the bottom slab, this slab, thickness of the bottom slab is taken as 0.8 meters. Thickness of the outer wall, this wall is taken as 0.4 meter. Okay, the overall width of the trough, the complete width from here to here, this width will be equal to waterway width plus the partition wall thickness plus the outer wall thickness. This you have to add up and find out the total overall width of the trough. The next step is to find the protection works. Here you will be having 4 wing walls actually, 2 canal wing walls and 2 river or water wing walls. So you can see here these are the canal wing walls. This is how the canal is going to flow. Okay, so here you have providing canal wing walls. This part is called as the canal wing walls. These canal wing walls is actually the part which accommodates the transition from a rectangular to a trapezoid and trapezoidal to a rectangular section. So here usually we provide a width of a wing wall of width 0.5 meters are provided for the canal, and also side wall thickness, as we decided in the earlier step, the side wall thickness is taken as 0.4 meter. Now there are other wing walls that is provided as protection for the abutment in the case of the river. So the river or the drain is flowing like this, means you have to provide wing walls in the river. These are actually protection works, and these has to be as deep as the maximum possible score depth of the river. So in this case usually we provide a 0.8 meter thick wing wall for the river wing walls. Okay, so the canal wing walls are usually of 0.5 meter and the river wing walls are of 0.8 meters. These are the protection works that we provide. This is the section that we get. You can see here, this is the first step that we did. We fixed up the waterway and then we divided it into number of spans and number of pillars and piers that we provide. Okay, next step was to design the fluming part, these sections of the canal, right? Now the canal waterway length we fixed up, and then the fluming section we designed, the fluming length we designed, then each of the section we designed, and then the next step was to design the trough part, right? How is the trough going to be? And last step was to provide the wing walls. Okay, these 4 wing walls on upstream and downstream side. This is the design of a aqueduct. We will see the design of a siphon aqueduct in the next video. Thank you. Hope you understood the design procedures. Just try to work out using a example question that is given in the textbook, and try to follow the steps one by one. Thank you.